I I actually had some experience with this thing you talked about, where in the U.S. or any country that has a freedom of religion, you're going to have this issue where a family, a father, let's say, is trying to do his religion, and let's say his religion says, "I get to marry my daughter off at 12 years old," and that's happening in America. Well, if the if this goes to court and the judge decides to give the father the freedom of his religion, well, then there's a forced marriage about to happen. Now, I don't know if people get this, if it's very obvious, but that goes against the individual rights of that 12-year-old little girl.
Yeah.
And now that's the wrong way to go. The judge that does it correctly, and this happened by my own experience, this is the way he said it: I will respect religion as much as I can until it crosses over into removing somebody's individual rights. Okay, so as an example of a thing, if a parent is hitting the child, and I want to be clear to everyone, in Illinois, the parent has the legal right to hit their child in some very specific context. Okay, like it has to be a corrective action. If the judge finds that, even if your religion says you get to hit your kids, that doesn't matter to the judge. The judge cares about the laws. Yes, there might be a conflict like you described, freedom of religion and the individual rights of the child, but I think it's a very clear win. Individual rights. That's the way it's going to work. And it's come on. It's anytime a parent is going to be abusing a child, I think everyone knows. Look, if it crosses over to abuse, we want to protect the child from the parent. We will remove the child from the parent.
Well,
that's how much the U.S. will do to protect the child.
Let me give a somewhat similar example from the U.S. and from, I think it's the UK, but I'm not entirely sure. So I think before I mentioned the issue of female genital mutilation, which is something that does happen within Islam, but it's also something that seems to have been an African custom that is independent of religion, which is
spread into the Arab world too.
No, it seems to have been something that was common in the general area. It's not something that I wouldn't necessarily say it originated in Africa, but because it seems to have been something.
Well, if you look at the numbers now, how much it's done, it's the biggest numbers are in Africa, deeper in Africa.
Right. Yes.
It is in Egypt a little bit.
Yes.
But less so than in the rest of Africa.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about here is not looking at the current statistics, but looking at it as a phenomenon that is there. It could have been something that originated in Africa. It originated from somewhere else.
People could have been aliens who brought it to us. There's so many infinite options.
Or maybe different groups of people independently came up with it. Whatever the reason or the origin is, it's something that has been instated within Islamic practices by actual texts, by actual quotes from that come or that can be traced to Muhammad. Whether he said it or not, that's irrelevant. What we know is that there are Muslims who followed these sayings and actually performed the acts on certain girls based on the fact that they think this is going to be increasing piety, increasing hygiene, whatever the reason is. And so this is something that has happened in certain European countries, and it reached the news. I'm not sure actually if it was the UK or the Netherlands, but it seems that it was treated at some point as a kind of a cultural thing that's happening within that community, that's okay, we're not really going to treat it as abuse as such.
To be clear
Because
for everyone, this is also the case for male genital
that's
whatever.
that's what I was going to say. So when it comes to Muslims and Jews, they do the circumcision right, almost right after the baby male is born, and
So we're disagreeing with the U.S. government who lets parents do this to their children.
yeah.
I'm disagreeing with it.
So
We
there
haven't come
was,
along. We haven't come to the level of, well, no one's actually, there's no activists in the US or lawyers arguing on behalf of babies, hey, don't cut off their, no one's doing that. That would be the reason why it's still there. No, you know what I mean? It goes against our laws here in principle, but no one's going to change it, until someone actually puts in the effort.
right, yeah. So by contrast, in the Arab world, there is uh, a professor in right now, he's in Switzerland, but he's originally from the Palestinian territories. His name is Sami Deeb, and he has been very vocal about male circumcision and the issues that it brings, and the fact that it is a form of abuse to the child, and so on. So there is activism, and I'm sure that if you look at some places, you would find some people opposing the idea that, okay, if you want the child to at some point undergo that procedure, it's going to be up to them to make that decision. It's their body, and so on. When they're babies, they're not going to have the consent, and so you shouldn't be doing that to them, etc. So the line of argument is very clear. It's something that you should have control over as an individual. And so I was bringing this up as a way that sometimes Western societies, where it is the fact that there are laws, there are some exceptions that are given to some of the communities in order to practice what is considered to be a cultural.
Grandfathered exceptions. It's grandfathered by 3,000 years.
Well, I
You know what
could.
I mean?
Yeah, true. But here's the thing. In the UK, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they have they admit the jurisprudence of Islamic courts, so that it's possible to have two parallel legal systems where you could actually have someone going to get married, get inheritance, stuff of that sort, through these courts, which are run by Muslims, which is at some point is going to conflict with the law of the
I think
land.
we have that in the US.
I am not entirely sure about the US. I'm talking about the UK.
This sounds like it would go against our basic laws.
Yeah, so that's another example of what I was saying.
All right, so we got some people talking. I'm gonna put up some of these real quick. RBG, Black American from Denver, Colorado. I'm putting this up because he also said he used to be a Muslim, and he was a Muslim for 10 years, and he didn't know about the child marriage till recently.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we should also clarify something about child marriage. So most of the Muslim countries don't have the practice as something that's as common as people might think. There are places. Yemen might be one of them. I would have to probably look it up, but I think there are certain places that have a certain legal age that goes well below the typical legal age. But at the same time, if you look at certain US states, you might also find some really low ages that don't conform to the typical norms. I'm not sure which states there are, but I think I think
I know what you mean. Some of them are pretty young. I think 16, or do you mean younger than that even?
I don't want to throw in a number that's wrong, but I feel that I've
14.
seen, it might have been, yeah.